Alright, before I start into the rankings, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video and welcome to the channel. My name is Jaywalk. Today I'm going to be ranking the Elden Ring Remembrance Bosses, 1 through 15, 1 being the best, 15 being the worst. Just as a little precursor, of course this is all my own opinion, as well as I fought every boss solo with no summons or ash spirit summons, so I could really gauge and get to know each boss on a level playing field. And without further ado, let's hop right into the video. Alright, so coming in as the worst Remembrance boss in Elden Ring, I have the Fire Giant. The Fire Giant, to me, is quite a boring fight. He tends to roll away a lot. It's a very long fight. The hitboxes are kind of outrageous sometimes. And he's also very ugly to me. So ugly, if he was my dog, I would shave his butt and teach him to walk backwards. I just really do not enjoy this fight, and this is why I have him as the worst boss. Coming in at number 14 is Estelle. Here I'm actually showing his reskin. He's the exact same, found in a dungeon, so that automatically kind of makes the fight less unique and fun to me. But on top of it, he tends to teleport away a lot. He has very limited moves. It's a very repetitive fight, although the overall design and look of the boss is great, which does keep him from coming in as the worst boss.
Of the last queen of Caria, Renala of the full moon.
For Renala, the reason she comes in so low is this fight is very reminiscent of the Deacons of the Deep. As far as the first phase goes, you have to kill regular enemies to get to the actual boss. The second phase does boost this boss overall, as the arena is very beautiful. The fight is more one-on-one, although she does still summon other overworld enemies, which does make the fight a little less unique. However, it is much more enjoyable, but just not as enjoyable as some of the other bosses to come. Next up, we have the Regal Ancestor. I am showing his first variation, as he is also reskinned throughout the game. So that again does lose a little uniqueness, as the only difference is he can heal by drawing health off the other animals around him. Other than that, he's exactly the same. I do really like the ambience of this fight, and the boss's design is great. I just don't feel as though the difficulty and variety of the moves make it any better than the bosses to come. Alright, here we have Lich Dragon Fortisax. I did borrow this gameplay. Please check the description and I'll link the channel for credit. I will show my own gameplay, a little bit of the white variation as well. Here we have a really cool designed boss. It's a big black dragon with red lightning, with some fun moves and a good intense fight. However, the white variation is seen quite a bit throughout the overworld, and it does lose some uniqueness in that regard, which brings it down just a little bit.
Join myself and King as remedy. Together we will devour the very god.
Rounding out the top 10, we have Rykard, and I know this might be surprising to see this boss this low. I know he's considered to be one of the better bosses, but overall, I don't care for his snake and face design on the same body. What sets this boss apart for me is the cool cutscene and the great voice acting and the memes that come from his lines. However, I do enjoy the nod to Yorm, and that's why the boss has just enough to squeak into the top 10.
Hypnotized. Playing as a lord. I command thee, kneel! I am the lord of all that is golden.
Coming in at number 9 is Godric, giving you an aura that you should only be giving to your girlfriend. He is a really cool design boss, another great voice actor, great cutscenes. However, what holds him back for me is the extreme delays in his attacks feel a little bit full of artificial difficulty and just unrealistic, and I don't find overly delayed charged with quick deliveries to be the best boss design, and so that does hold it back a little. But the different phases with the dragon in the second phase are great, and I find this boss overall pretty fun, although not too challenging. Here we have Dragon Lord Placidusax. He is probably the best dragon fight in Elden Ring, the most unique, the most difficult, but the coolest design. He reminds me a lot of hanging out with the boys because he gives you multiple heads to deal with, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, the reason the fight is more towards the middle for me is because he does spend a lot of time flying and teleporting, which I do kind of find boring in boss fights. However, he does also spend a lot of time when you can fight him up close, and he has a decent moveset, but it's not too hard to read. I do find this boss fight overall to be enjoyable, and that's why he's above the previous bosses in the list. Coming in at number 7 is our pedophile friend Moog. While his motives and lore may be a little questionable, his design is great, his voice lines are great, the voice actor is great. I do find the first phase to be extremely easy, while I do think the second phase is a lot harder, and I do find that balancing to be a little odd, but I really enjoy this fight, other than I do think he would benefit from being in a larger arena, as when he blows his fiery load with every attack, your character tends to stagger a lot, and there's not a whole lot of room, and it feels like the entire arena is dangerous to tread upon as you're building bleed as well. Other than that, I find this boss to be an extreme joy. Coming in at number 6, we have the last boss in Elden Ring, Radhan and the Elden Beast. I really enjoy the first phase. Radhan is a cool designed enemy with great moves. Overall, not too difficult, but not a whole lot you can complain about with him. I think the fight's pretty epic. The music's great. Where the fight does lose a little bit of points with me is the second phase. I enjoy the design of the Elden Beast, but he does spend a lot of time running away, shooting long distance attacks, teleporting to the floor, flying in the air when you have to run away, and he does some like nuclear explosion thing with rings. I do also think that the boss can be a little too spammy, and there's just a lot to deal with, and at times it feels like a little cheap when you die, because he's shooting laser swords at you while he's got a homing beacon, and he's shooting eldritch arrows at you, and it just becomes a little much. But overall, He's cool enough and unique enough that I have him here just outside the top 5, but because of those few minor flaws, they'll stay just below the top 5.
Upon my name as Godfrey, the first Elden Lord.
Our first boss in the top 5 is Horlu or Godfrey. The first phase of this fight is one of the best in the game, I think. The design of the boss is amazing with the lion on his back. The amazing voice acting, cutscene, and everything is great. I do find the moves in the first phase to be a little repetitive. I did find that he did do some stomp attacks like over and over and over, which did bring it down a notch for me. The second phase, he completely ditches the line, ditches his axe, and turns into a Street Fighter character and tries to kill you with his bare hands, which in one breath is really cool and kind of badass, but at the same time it kind of feels less epic than the beginning of the battle and makes me not enjoy the second phase as much, which also kind of brings him down, which is why he's the lowest in the top 5. But he's still a really good quality boss and I enjoy it quite a lot. In my 4th spot, I have Malekith the Black Blade. This boss, I think, would be a little higher if he was just his second phase the entire fight, but the first phase is just a reskin of the Beast Clergyman, which you probably fought or interacted with in the overworld. This part of the fight is a little underwhelming. The Beast Clergyman is kind of spammy. He does an annoying amount of damage when he throws his rocks over and over again. He's overall not too difficult, but he's not too enjoyable. Where the fight really gets amazing is the second phase. The cutscene is awesome. The design of the boss is awesome. The fight is pretty epic. It can be really challenging. However, I do think the moveset is limited enough that you can get a hang of it pretty quickly. I do find this boss to be really enjoyable and great, but because of the little bit of a lackluster first phase and kind of the limited moveset, it doesn't beat out the top 3 for me, but still a great boss.
I am Melania, Blade of Mikola. And I have never known defeat.
Coming in at number 3 is Melania, by far the hardest boss in Elden Ring. She took me probably about 40 tries or more myself to beat her, and when I did beat her, I jumped for joy. She not only heals when she hits you, she has an anime wombo combo 3000 that can pretty much one-shot you. She has multiple phases, almost full health bars in both, and the ultimate catch you with your dick out while you're healing move. Every time you heal, she likes to do a charge. Overall, I do think this boss is very well designed and great. I just think a few balancing problems maybe with the moves need to be addressed, and that kind of keeps her out of the top 2, but overall an amazing boss.
Have it writ upon thy meager grave. Felled thy King Morgoth, last of all kings.
Coming in as the runner-up for best boss in Elden Ring is Morgoth, the Omen King. This boss is amazing. I cannot understate how much I love this boss. The lore is great, the cutscene is awesome, and the voice acting is top-notch. Where the fight does lose some points versus my personal favorite boss in the game is because he is not technically unique, because he does appear as Margit earlier in the game. While the combos and the overall fight don't feel too similar, the design of the boss and voice acting is all the same. But overall, I find it forgivable as the fight is just awesome, the lore is great, and it's really overall just an amazing boss. But he doesn't quite edge out my personal favorite.
Now he gathers the corpses of former friends and foes alike, gorging on them like a dog.
Coming in as my personal favorite boss in Elden Ring is Radhan. This boss is absolutely amazing. It starts off with a great cutscene, a festival full of multiple NPCs, and I actually did not use any of the NPCs my first time. I went through and stubbornly melee only soloed him, which, let me tell you, it changes a man. It was very difficult. I was using the Grafted Greatsword about level 50. It was very difficult, and I did not picture a boss being worse or harder than him until I got to Melania, obviously. But the boss's design is great, his weapons are great, just an absolute amazing boss. One of my favorite of the series, and he actually makes history to me as being the only boss to hang enough brain that it actually turns into a horse. The lore for this boss is absolutely amazing, between his fights with Melania, Morgott, an absolute gem of a boss, and I can't overstate enough how much I just adore this boss. But at the end of the day, this is all just my opinion, of course. Feel free to let me know how you rank your bosses, and if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to keep an eye out for my future videos, and thank you again for watching, and have a beautiful day.